your part.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna do it. All because of
Do I just take it over like this? Do you support? Knock, knock. Testing, testing. Now we're good. Like I just
What a great crowd tonight.
Question first. And
$10 You're right. I remember.
What the?
Do you support? Knock,
Are we paying
knock.
for a board?
I have.
There.
They're just potential questions. Like these might not actually be the real questions. Potential
No,
questions. I want to make sure I say that. They be the question.
oh my god, did this get wet? Shouldn't have. The bug.
Oh, I bet.
IR urinal. Must have been. I don't know.
truth is,
Bathroom. Sure thing. Way up here, you get
he's like, truth is,
No, it still is cool. Yeah, go.
I am Iron Man.
Iron Man. Ladies and gentlemen, I like if I song, I'm dashing in the middle of these and I'm gone.
Oh.
Yep. It's all gonna be on.
Right here.
Or so.
Okay, no.
Oh, okay.
And then you can scooch.
Why?
Yeah, just spring off.
Or you could just go.
On. Hello. Testing. Testing. Marcel. Oh, there. Oh boy.
You sure?
Oh my.
You have water?
Yeah.
Do we not get Alright, I'm sorry.
All right, good evening. Welcome everybody in the audience out here and those that have tuned in to the Media Productions YouTube channel. We're happy to have you here and listening to the 2017 School Board Candidate Forum. I'm going to keep my opening remarks short so we can get right into the questions, but I did want to introduce our students that are assisting. These are students with the Media Productions class, students of Mr. Kerr, who've been working with Lisa Hafes from the newspaper. We've met several times to discuss the format and how the forum will be running tonight. So we have Haley Kolpak and Colin Schellbauer, who will be taking turns reading questions tonight. And Marcel Diggs will be the timekeeper. And he, in a minute here, will be going through the format as to how the questions will be divvied up between the candidates and the amount of time they will have for each response. So I'm going to turn it over to Marcel.
Thank you. On behalf of the Media Productions class, welcome to this evening's School Board Candidate Forum. This is an informal evening, but we have a few ground rules. Each candidate has 2 minutes for opening and closing remarks, and 2 minutes to answer each question. We do have a timer, and it will buzz when the 2 minutes are up. We would ask the candidates to wrap up their thoughts if they hear that buzzer. Our questioners, Haley Kolpak and Colin Schellbauer, will take turns asking questions prepared by the students with input from the public and assistance from the Antigo Daily Journal. We will rotate from whoever will answer the question first, and will reserve the order for opening and closing remarks. Candidates are seated alphabetically. Let's get underway, starting with Dr. Deep, who is not here with us. Okay, now, Mr. Deek.
Thank you.
Are you going to speak?
Are we ready to go? Yeah? Okay. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Roy Deek, and I was born in this community where I spent most of my life. I served on the school board for 10 years in the 70s. All the faces, of course, have changed since then. And I even think these young folks here probably weren't even born yet. And of course, we had twice as many students in those days as we have now. And we had basically the same amount of space. And so things have changed quite a lot. Personally, I expect some major changes in education in the next several years. I would like this district to be on the cutting edge of some of those changes. I would like there to be, when it happens, and rather than have us looking in other districts for ideas, I would rather that the other districts are looking to us. Brian Misfeld, the superintendent, has stated that the board is faced with major challenges, one being the hiring of a replacement for his position. Another challenge the board is involved in Mattoon's request for a new district. We're involved in budget preparation, which takes a lot of time and takes place this year. And now the board has passed a resolution to close the 3 remaining country schools. There are other problems for the board to work through as well, and all of this is hard work and time consuming. I have the skills, the time, and the experience to help get through the problems we have now and the problems that I foresee are to come. I know the rules and the board's responsibilities. I'm ready to step in and do my part should the voters choose to make that choice.
Thank you. Now, next up, we have Dr. Patrick McKenna.
Thank you. My name is Patrick McKenna. I grew up here in Antigo. Roy is right. I was born in 1975, but I moved back here about 5 years ago. This is a great community. It has been an honor to serve on the board these past 3 years. Roy is absolutely correct. We face a number of challenges in the community and in the district. These are challenges, some of which are beyond our control, things like demographic changes, things like the rules that the state puts upon us. And we are asked to meet those challenges every time we sit down and work together. We have faced some difficult decisions, but decisions that are good for education and will hopefully move the district forward in years to come. I appreciate you all being here tonight, and I appreciate the candidates who are running in this election. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Danny Pyatt.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to the administration for allowing us to come and have this, to the students that are here serving, and thank you for being here, to the Antigo Daily Journal for being here as well. My name is Danny Pyatt. Many of you may not know me. I'm not from Antigo originally. My family and I moved here in 2008. Some of you may have already heard of my being a pastor in our area. However, I'm not running as a pastor. I'm running as Danny Pyatt. So the role of pastor will not interfere with my involvement in school activities. In 2008, when we moved here, we fell in love with this community. So much so, we've moved from New Orleans all the way up here. We've kind of split the Midwest. And the denomination that I was working with was tapping me on the shoulder to move to another area. And we decided that we didn't want to move to another area. So we left that denomination, planting our own church here, and bought our home over near City Park. So we're excited to be Antigonians and be a part of this great community. I've served on a lot of elected boards through the church denomination. I've handled and dealt with, had to budget multi-million-dollar budgets. It's not fun when you deal with budgets. You have to look at hard, tough-hitting issues. As a long-term pastor, I've had to assume leadership roles and learn how to become a consensus builder and working with people, bringing people together, sometimes positively, sometimes negative on both sides, and try to be the middle ground. And that's where I would like to focus, is I can look at both sides and be a neutral person, be a neutral candidate, part of the district here. With 21 years of training that I've had with pastoral experience and being on other boards and committees, I feel like all of that can come together and help with the Antigo School District here. I've sat on parliamentary committees in the past and had to follow Robert's Rules of Order, bring order to a meeting whenever things would go awry. My desire of wanting to serve on this board is to help fulfill the mission of our school district, and that is, and I'm reading and quoting, in partnership with the community, our mission is to provide a safe and positive educational climate that will produce lifelong learners able to achieve their maximum potential and contribute responsibly to society. That's what we need to be about, is our young people leaving here, some going on to further their education, some going into the technical field. We need to produce maximum lifelong learners. As a board member, if elected, I would become part of the decision-making body of the school district. And by being a member, I become part of the team representing this district in our community and everywhere that we go. After reviewing our board policy, which is number 150.0, it states about the board powers and duties. I will work within those powers, stay within the bounds that clearly defines the duties of the school district, of the school board. I'll endeavor to be an effective listener, and that's what you have to be as a board member, because I'm not here to push my personal agenda. I'm here elected, hopefully, by you, and I'm here to represent all of the voters of the Unified School District of Antigo. So we have to be an effective listener in order to promote what the voters want. So in having said that, I appreciate your vote. Thankful for all the candidates that are here tonight. Thankful for you being here and those watching. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, we have J.D. Schroeder.
Hi guys, I'm J.D. Schrader. I might be on the ballot as John, I can't remember. I got appointed to the board roughly 6 months ago. Some parts have been really, really not fun, and other parts have been fun. I was a lawyer for a couple of years, and now I'm a potato farmer. I guess I was born in this community in 1985. I went to Pleasantville Elementary. Then obviously graduated here, came back after college and law school at UW-Madison. I'm the treasurer of the UW Alumni Association Antigo Division, and I just got appointed to the Community Health Foundation, but I haven't actually been to a meeting yet. They only meet like 4 times a year. It's a lot easier than our several-hour meetings once a week on the school board. I guess things I'm more interested in education than what buildings should be open. I guess I'd say one of my favorite quotes from my E.D. Hirsch, one of my favorite education researchers, is, if I were a principal in a primary school, I'd spend my money on teachers' ongoing development, on creating conditions in which the work of teachers in one grade supports the work of teachers in the next, and on environments in which teachers have time to consult and collaboratively plan. So I'm interested in those 3 things. I'm somewhat interested in trying to get another recess so young kids, especially young boys, can sustain their attention span and learn more effectively. And I'd love to see us be able to start a robotics club after school for kids. I think Dean Kamen, the guy who invented the Segway and the portable dialysis machine, he's got like 450 patents. He has an organization. It uses Legos and robots, and you can start it all the way at kindergartners. And I think that might be a really effective way to help kids start preparing to compete in a world where robots are getting really smart. So thank everybody for coming today. Appreciate the other candidates and hope this will be fun.
Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourselves. And now Haley will ask the first question, and the first response will be to Mr. Deek. And remember, you have 2 minutes to answer the question.
On Tuesday, the Antigo School Board approved moving forward with an elementary school consolidation and district-wide grade reconfiguration plan, citing a mix of educational and cost-saving benefits. What is your view on this plan?
I'd like you to just speak a little louder and repeat the question, please.
On Tuesday, the Antigo School Board approved moving forward with an elementary school consolidation and district-wide grade reconfiguration plan, citing a mix of educational and cost-saving benefits. What is your view on this plan?
The board has its own reasons for consolidation. And their explanation for consolidation is improved academic achievement for the students. But the primary reason for doing this is money. Now, if anybody tells you anything else, that's not true. The primary reason is money. Because if we had the money, I think they would listen a little bit more carefully to the people that live in the rural areas and probably work out a solution to the problems. Now, it's interesting to me that the achievement that's going on in the schools in the rural area, and matter of fact, all of the elementary schools, well, let me back up just a little bit. The primary reason is so that the teachers have a cooperative teaching area and ability. They talk about lower class sizes. They talk about a number of things that would produce better academic achievement. But it's strange that the mandate that came out of the DPI has all of the elementary schools except one ranking higher academically than the high school, and the high school has the ability to do all these things. So the argument that we're going to improve education in the rural schools is false. And in my opinion, I think we ought to pay more attention to what the public wants out there, because I don't think if you're going to have 4 different learning sessions all through the rural schools.
I apologize, your 2 minutes are up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. McKenna, you're up.
The process for figuring out how to approach the challenges we face began last year in terms of the facilities plan. We looked at 3 things. We looked at balancing class sizes as best as we could. We looked at providing equal services in all of the schools. Currently, schools have some services like special education or reading services that others do not. And then the third aspect that we looked at was multi-track schools. When you look at research about education, when you look at ways teachers collaborate and ways students learn, it's helpful to have more than one class of a first grade, for example, in a school. It allows teachers to work together. It allows students to be fit with teachers according to their learning styles, the students' learning styles. And so that process led to this ultimate sort of plan. The plan is to close the 3 rural schools and consolidate with in-town schools. We then did a process where we had listening sessions, and we heard from people that care a great deal about their rural schools. And so after that process, we said we need to have a compromise that fits within this. And so the resolution last Tuesday indicates that we will move forward with the one track that is based on education and also financial realities, but at the same time, we can work on an alternative plan. And if the community is able to move forward and say, we support this plan, this alternative plan, then we will move forward with a different plan. But the cost of not doing anything is greater than the cost of, the cost of not doing anything is great. If we leave things
I
as they are.
apologize, your 2 minutes are up.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Pyatt?
Since I've been part of this community in 2008, I've been attending a number of the school board meetings. Can't say every one of them. Some I could not attend. And I have heard the facilities debate all of those years, just about at every school board meeting. We've failed referendums, I believe 4 just in the short time that I've been part of our community. And the motion that was presented on Tuesday night reads as this: moving 8th grade to the high school, 4th, 5th grade into the current middle school building, consolidate 4K through 3rd grade into east, north, west elementary schools, close the remaining elementary schools, beginning no sooner than the 2018-19 school year, to be completed no later than 2019 through 20 school year, unless, keyword, a referendum is passed by February 2018 primary election to implement an alternate facilities consolidation plan. 4 listening sessions was attended not long ago. 2 of those I was part of, was there listening to all of the comments that was made in favor of and opposed to the consolidation. The other 2, I was unfortunately unable to be there. I was out of state. But I have the notes, the minutes of those other 2 meetings. What I took away from those was the voters, the voting constituency of the Unified School District of Antigo said, run a referendum for operations, and we'll pass it to leave the rural presence open. Many times, many people said those things. And in all the referendums that I've heard over the last several years, I don't recall ever hearing run a referendum for operations to leave things the way that they are, with some minor modifications. I agree with the specialized services that need to be in all of the
I
schools.
apologize, your 2 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Mr. Schroeder?
Thank you. We're getting a pretty good cumulative answer here. We're all talking about a little separate pieces of it. I voted for the plan. We voted 9-0. It was a hard thing to do. The week before, 2 weeks before, after we listened to the listening session, I was personally thought, how can we take the rural community's feelings into account? How can we place a rural presence ahead of our goals for equitable services, equal class size, and multi-track schools? So Brian came up with a pretty good alternate plan that I argued for in the last ad hoc meeting. I just called it Plan B. Close East Elementary, leave 2 rural schools open, Spring Valley and Pleasant View or Crestwood. Now, the problem with the plan is you are losing teacher collaboration and it's more expensive. more expensive to run extra buildings, more expensive for the busing. So when I wanted to push that, it looked like a lot more likely that we were going to get the governor requested an extra $200 for next year and $400 the next. So that'd be a big help to our budget deficit. When the ad hoc committee first started planning, I think they were looking at something like an $800,000 budget deficit. And with the governor's additional money, it was only $370,000. So when I thought that was going to happen, Plan B looked a lot easier to do without a referendum. But when the legislators started pushing back, all of a sudden you got to say, well, now we can't afford this. Or at least we can't afford it unless we can hopefully run a referendum for a plan like that, or maybe a better one. Now, the problem with the referendum is we've only passed 2 out of 11 since 1996. That's an 18%, we call it a base rate. And it's hard to make predictions, especially about the future, to paraphrase Yogi Berra. So, like, if you go to the doctor, you say, have I got a disease? Doctor, what are my chances?
I apologize, your 2 minutes are up.
Oh, sorry.
Next question will be asked by Colin, and we're starting with Mr. Dyke again.
The plan being supported by the present board does allow for an alternate education plan if it is supported by voters through a referendum election by February 2018. Would you support a referendum to maintain rural education? And if so, what form should it take?
Sorry, Mr. McKenna, you have to answer the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alternative plan, I think it's very important to come up with a plan that meets the needs of the students. So I think it needs to include special education services. It needs to include services so all the schools have equal services. So I think that's really important. I think that alternative plan should include a rural presence, because a rural presence is something that is part of this community, and it's something that we heard at the feedback sessions. I do think it's important that the costs are upfront on that sort of plan, and so that the operational costs that would take need to be part of it. And then ultimately we need to see if the community supports it. So I actually favor the original plan because I think it does the best for student education and provides the best opportunities for students. But if there's going to be an alternative, it should meet these other needs, and we should see if the community will support it.
Okay, then, moving on to Mr. Pyatt.
In the alternative plan, that would be if the referendum would pass. If the referendum passes, then the alternative plan could come into play. And in that alternative plan, we need to look at what the board has come up with in collaboration with the administration with the equalized services for special needs throughout the entire district. Because we have some schools who do not provide special needs services for their children, so they're bused to another school. So we need to look and make sure the plan that has come up with will provide the equal services for all of our students, not just a portion of our students, and not leave anybody out. Everybody needs to be included. And the costs, we need to always look at the costs, and that's where budget comes in. Sometimes things get cut out of the budget that are important. We need to look at every item in the budget. And in doing that, maybe on the board we should form some type of ad hoc committee that deals with just the financial structure of the district to work alongside the business department to help with the budgeting process for the school district. So I would support an alternative plan in the event of a referendum passing, and that alternative plan would have to come through what the people, the voting constituency of the Unified School District would like to do. Once again, I'm here to represent the constituents of the Unified District, not my personal agenda. Thank you.
All right, then, Mr. Schroeder.
Yes, I definitely support. I'd like Plan B. I've heard it suggested we should run a referendum. It's probably too expensive to keep all the schools running as is, just with our declining enrollment and with continuing declining enrollment. One of the benefits, actually, of Plan A, one of the big concerns we heard was busing, the times. Right now, the average, or the long bus ride to get to school is 54 minutes. Under the plan switching to K-12 busing, it's going to drop to 40 if we keep running the same number of routes. So that's at least one good thing. You are losing some green space going to the Plan A. But like I said, I'm very happy to try to run a referendum that keeps a rural presence and but it's got to be affordable. Maybe $1 million, $100 a year per 100,000 house. I'm not exactly sure that's enough to support Plan B. We got to get down and figure that out and run the numbers, and Tim will help us, and we'll all sit down and do that. And I'm not going to try and push to build a new city school somewhere, a big mega school. That is the one nice thing about Plan B, is by moving the fifth graders in from the 2 remaining country schools, you have an extra room available for that special education services. And closing East Elementary makes it so we have enough. Title I is a federal reading program, so we get an extra teacher to teach reading, and closing one school would put one of those teachers in every one of the remaining schools. So that the plan, it's appealing to me. I thought Brian and Tim did a good job when they came up with it. So hopefully we can come up with some more good ones as well.
Thank you. Dr. Dyke?
The question is, will you support Plan B? A simple answer for me is no. Neither would I support Plan A. Until someone can show me that there's some advantage by bringing all these kids and putting them together into the middle school, grades 4 through 7, which would be 616 kids, and you can show me that you're not going to have the problems with discipline that we have now, until somebody can show me that there's an advantage academically, I can accept closing any of those rural schools, none of them. If you go on the website of the DPI scores every K through 12 school in Wisconsin. And the scores that we have are very well done and very high for the rural schools and all the elementary schools except one. The only place where it falls down and it says few expectations are met is in the high school. So I know that all of these things are good things that we put in, but the high school has the advantage of all these things already. And it's teachers that teach kids. It's not equipment, it's not plans, it's not facilities, anything more. If we don't have a good teacher, the kids will not be taught. And it's all money. And right now we're in the process of budgeting through the month of April. We don't know if we can keep these schools open or not. And until somebody puts the numbers down in front of me and tells them, no, we can't do it, I would support a referendum to keep them open. But we haven't seen these numbers. We won't see them for another month. And then we would decide if we can afford to keep these schools open. But would I support the closing of these schools? The answer is a simple no.
2 minutes. Oh, okay. All right. Third question will be asked by Haley, starting with Mr. Pyatt.
How important is it to you that students attend an elementary school near their home, thereby reducing the transportation burden on kids and parents, increasing participation in extracurricular activities, and enhancing community engagement in education?
Great question, Haley. Whenever we moved here in 2008, we became part of the rural community, and our children went to the Pleasant View School. We love the Pleasant View School. Our 2 kids went there. They enjoyed their time. And being close to that small school, you have a family unit that's closer together. I came from what is commonly known in our area here as a mega school. All of our students in our town that I was raised in was all in one school. So they were multi-track grade levels. There's advantages and there are disadvantages to multi-track. But whenever you are close to the school, the parents are close, thereby gives access to the parents to be able to come and be a part of the daily life of what goes on in that school. I think it's vitally important for the younger kids to being close to having that feeling of being close to their parents as well. As far as the bus rides goes, I really believe that shorter bus rides would be very beneficial to our students, especially the younger students. of not getting up so early in the morning, not staying on the bus so late in the evening. I believe shorter bus rides will be important, and I think that is the one common denominator that we all are struggling with is shorter bus rides. But we are a large district, and we've got a lot of miles to cover. Being a former bus driver for the Antigo School District, driving from Gleason is a long way to go at 6 o'clock in the morning. And that was one of the routes that I would sub for. And it's a long ride. And those kids get on the bus. They're half asleep when they get on the bus. They're half asleep when they get off the bus. So we've got to collaborate with the board, with the community, and come up with a plan that we could keep the bus rides shorter in order to get our students to school in a more effective time. So I think it's vitally important.
2 minutes are up. Thank you.
We do a lot better stopping right at 2 minutes than the politicians on TV. Everybody always keeps talking. How important is it to be near the school? I guess my first question would be how do you define near? I guess we're not gonna. I know you don't have the official answer for that. Like we said before, the long bus. Hopefully, everybody's bus rides are going to get shorter under A. I would support leaving those rural schools open if we can pass a referendum. Is that more important than equitable services, equal class sizes, or multi-track schools? That is the hard question. Do you place that rural presence goal over those other goals that the board picked? I'm certainly willing to do it in a Plan B or in a different referendum if that's what the community wants to support. I'm not 100% sure it's the smartest thing educationally. That's why when Brian comes out and says, hey, JD, your Plan B is a little worse educationally, but if it's that what the community wants to do, let's do it. And I agree with that.
Speak.
The kids don't learn anything when they're on the bus. And even today, I would question that we're ever going to get school bus rides down to 40 or 50 or 60 minutes if you bring all these kids into town. It's a long ways to all corners of this district. And when you start picking up kids, and let's face it, half of the time that we operate these buses, we have questionable weather conditions, and that's going to slow the routes down. And to me, as I've said in the past, to put a 4-year-old child or a 5-year-old child on a school bus for an hour, hour and a half a day borders on criminal. We wouldn't even do that with a dog. We have to figure out a way to get these kids as close to the school as we can possibly get them. Now, I'm well aware that down the road someplace, if everybody moves into the city or if the population drops so far that we have 10 kids in one of these schools or 20, I know we have to do something. We're not there yet. We know where we're going to be 5 years from now. We don't know 10 years. We don't know 20 years. We only know 5 years. And we can plan for 5 years to where these kids can go to school. And academically, I see no benefits to bringing them in. As far as their sports and whatnot, there's no match for the kids in the middle school compared to the rural schools. Now, if you put 616 young kids into the middle school, where are they going to play? Now, that was built for a junior high school. Those kids were 9th and 10th graders. Now we're going to put little kids in there. They need green space. They need a place to play. And you put 600 kids in there, we got a problem from the day go. And so...
I apologize. Your 2 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Mr. McKenna?
It is a real challenge in a district that is the 4th largest district in the state to meet all of the needs for close education for students. So I think the district does an admirable job now. And actually, if we had consolidated busing in terms of having all of our kids heading in on one school bus from a particular area, just from a common sense standpoint, that lowers the time that they're on the bus. The difficulties we face are that that a drive out to Gleason from here is about 35, 40 minutes. You know, a drive to the top part of Gleason. A drive out to Lilly is nearly an hour. So we face very real challenges. I think we do a good job now, and a consolidation plan would hopefully and likely lower the bus times in general. Some kids would ride longer, and that's just the reality of changing things around. In terms of the population and the needs of the population, we've had about a halving of our population from 1970. So we face very real challenges already out in the rural districts, in the rural areas of the county. I think the most important thing is JD noted that educationally, we can do a better job if we pool our resources, if we allow the maximum teacher collaboration, if we provide services to all of the schools. And I know that it was our goal in setting out with the original plan, and I think it's a reasonable objective. But if the community feels differently, then we should support that as well.
Thank you. Question number 4 will be asked by Colin, starting with Mr. Schroeder.
On April 4th, district voters will be asked to trim the size of the Board of Education from 9 to 5 and split representation between 2 city and 3 rural residents. Do you support apportionment? And if so, how should representation be divided?
I guess if I was going to reduce the board, maybe I'd reduce it to 7 members. There's a lot of us, we all like to talk. So 5 seems like a little too few. I'm going to steal this idea from Roy. It makes it, if somebody's missing, like just you only have a 5-member board and then a couple people are gone because they have a family commitment or you get sick or something, it's a lot harder to accomplish things than when you have a 9-member board. That's probably not the biggest reason. I'm not sure the boundaries are drawn perfectly. Like Andy Mary's a strawberry farmer and he's counted as in the city, and the place definitely looks like it's country to me. There's like a quarter-mile away, right in the middle of the country, my neighbor, Gene Hebner, I think they said he counts as in the city, and he's definitely in the country, you know, surrounded by trees and potato fields. I think I heard somebody say the other day that 56% of the population would be in the city area, but they would only have 2 representatives, and that the country would have 3. Probably a more important reason is you're just having less representation in general. So if you're going to have more chances for more ideas, more people to call, and like let's say I have a bad idea, there's more people on the board to stop that bad idea. If there's just fewer people, it's a lot easier to have bad ideas go through, I would think.
Deke?
The apportionment intent is okay. The idea is that our district would be operated just like the city, which is apportioned, and the county is apportioned as well. The idea is okay. The problem that I find with it is that I see no reason to decrease the number of members on the board. I guess I would look at it a little different if there was 7. 5 is too few, because you have a risk that if you have a little illness in the community, you may not get a quorum for a meeting. Or you may be accused of violating the open meeting laws if you've got a couple of people having a cup of coffee together that are on the same committee. I don't want to say whether I'm in favor of it or not, but this is an individual judgment that everyone makes. But I think something happened years ago. For the reason we had 9 members on the board is because we had 9 committees, and the work of the board was all split up, so it was decided in committees before it got to the general board. Somebody in the distant past, whoever it was, abolished these committees, and that's responsible for, in my opinion, for the most of the confusion that takes place on the board now. And that's the reason that they tried to patch it back together with what they call an operations committee. That doesn't solve the problems, because this work has to be decided in fewer people with more committees. Matter of fact, the board policy calls for the budget to be reviewed by a finance committee, and we don't even have one. So all of this has to have a second look. But that's the reason why we have apportionment. That's why we have 9 members on the board. And there's nothing to gain, in my opinion, by reducing the numbers on the board, except that we might have less fights. But that's not a problem, though.
Thank you. Mr. McKenna?
The referendum, as stated, is undemocratic and decreases the representation of the community. The way the boundaries are drawn up, they're drawn up to call people who live in the country in the city. And it doesn't seem to make much sense, other than if you really wanted to limit participation by more community members in terms of running for office and in terms of participating in the process. I guess I don't see where decreasing the number, making people come from certain areas when you already have a board that is represented by rural and city individuals already makes any sense. So I oppose the referendum. I don't think it's very well written, and I'll be voting against it.
Thank you. Payat?
The question, do I support the apportionment? The answer is no. The reason that I would say no is not in the way that it is written. I agree with what my fellow candidates have said in that it would you would lose representation. Right now you have 9 members at large that could come from anywhere within our district and serve on our present school board. Present school board now, I believe, has 2 people in the city. The other 7 are considered rural. Correct me if I'm wrong on that after my 2 minutes is up. If it was reworded a different way, I could live with what Mr. Deacon said about the 7-member board. But I believe the representation is the key factor there. We are here representing the voting constituency of the Unified School District of Antigo, so you are limiting from 9 all the way down to 5. When my wife and family and I moved into the city and bought our home, we live in Ward 6. I would have to really go back and look, but I believe when we moved in, there was a month, maybe 2 months, that in the newspaper, just about on a nightly basis, was an article that said, would you please serve as an alderman for Ward 6? So whenever you begin to set boundaries and say you have to come from that boundary, would we be limiting qualified candidates to serve that maybe there's 4 candidates in one area and 1 in another area. So I believe that we need to keep the boundaries open for the entire district of our school district. So no, I would not support the apportionment. And as Mr. Deek also stated, if you have a 5-member board and you have 2 people that go out and have coffee talking about the Brewers game that just took place, not even talking about the school board issues, that could be misconstrued as those 2 board members talking about, and they could be violating open meetings law. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 5 will be asked by Haley, starting with Mr. Deek.
The Antigo School District has a long and proud history dating to the founding of the community in the 1880s, but it seems to be facing an almost unprecedented number of controversies and challenges, including declining enrollments and tightening budgets and state cost controls. In light of those circumstances, what is your personal vision for the school district over the next 5 and 10 years?
In short, I have no opinion for the next 10 years because the way it looks today is going to be vastly different from where it looks 5 years from now. We have 5 years from now, we know how many kids there's going to be. The methods that we use today are not going to be the same as they would be 5 years from now, but the enrollment is not going to drop very much in 5 years, but we have no assurance of what it's going to do beyond that. Now, I'm wondering if you would give me the last half of your question. I'm sorry, I think it's important.
Last half. So, in light of those circumstances, what is your personal vision for the school district over the next 5 to 10 years?
Why don't you just read the whole question?
Sure. The Antigo School District has a long and proud history dating to the founding of the community in the 1880s, but it seems to be facing an almost unprecedented number of controversies and challenges, including declining enrollments and tightening budgets and state cost controls. In light of those circumstances, what is your personal vision for the school district over the next 5 and 10 years?
Okay, thank you. The driving force behind our size of our school district is governed by the number of students that we have. And as student population declines, it's automatic that we're going to cut back on our budget, we're going to cut back on everything. We're going to cut back on the building facilities if we can. And yes, I think we should cut back. We should base our budget based upon the number of students that we have. Now, if we have a declining population, there's no question that our cost per student is going to go higher because we still have to main buildings. We have to pay administration. So some costs are not going to decrease at the same rate that enrollment does. But when it comes to the number of staff that we're employing and the number of bus rides that we have, of course, we have to cut our budget in those areas. Well, of course, we haven't. But our cost per student is quite comparable to other districts our size. So we have no problem that way. And the other thing, remember that we don't have a referendum debt. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McKenna?
All districts, all schools in this state and actually across the country are facing tremendous challenges in terms of education. We also are facing a number of challenges, but we also have a number of opportunities. I will say in the next 5 to 10 years, we definitely need to pool our resources. Let's structure our district in a way that's going to prepare our teachers so that they can educate as well as they can. Let's give our students all of the resources available that we can. And so I think that's really important. In the next 5 to 10 years and beyond, teacher collaboration, the ability of students to collaborate well, the ability of teachers and students to be flexible in how they learn is going to be absolutely essential. So we have to structure the district in a way that will allow that. I think that this place has a strong identity. Antigo is a great place to grow up. I came back here. It's just a great community. I see people giving back to this community in many ways. We have a strong identity. I think we need to build upon that in our schools as well. Antigo Pride is a great example of how we're doing that. And then beyond that, how do we pick key areas that we want to focus on as areas of excellence? For example, we're building the Fab Lab. The Fab Lab is an environment in which students can learn and innovate. We have the school forests that is just an amazing place. And how can we pull students into that environment, both from the country and the city? So we face a number of challenges, but we have to prepare for flexibility and for pooling our resources well.
Thank you. Ayat?
This is a little tough question for me because my history is short in the Antigo area. Obviously, I don't go all the way back to 1880s. I just go back to the 70s personally. So when I look at the declining enrollment in our community, my first question is, how can we work through declining enrollment? Possibly, now this is where you're going to see the novice in me as serving on this board, is declining enrollment. Could we not partner with our community, with our alderman, with our mayor, and see what we can do to bring better jobs to our community? Because as you bring better jobs to our community, you're going to bring families to our community. You're going to bring more students to our community. There is an issue with declining enrollment. Like Dr. McKenna has already stated, declining enrollment is not just an issue with the Antigo School District. It is an issue with all school districts because of the other ways by which somebody can receive their education through the computer, through open enrolling in other districts, homeschooling, those types of things. So the public school system is facing challenges, not just here in Antigo, but around the state and around the country with the other ways by which students are being educated. So we have to become clever, and we have to get a teacher staff here that educates our students. That way, whenever they do graduate from this school, they go on and become lifelong learners. So the budget is going to tighten. But one thing that I have seen about this community is every month there is thousands of dollars that is given to this school district from various people in our community. So Antigo Pride is alive and well for this school district. Just this past Tuesday, the board accepted over $30,000 in donations for various projects in and around the school. I think that speaks well of our community, and I know that we can work through the budget issues.
There's a few words after the buzzer.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you want to see the future like? I already talked about it a little. Like to see some more recess. I mean, that'd be one way to draw enrollment. Maybe we'll steal some kids if parents want their kids to have more recess. It'd be nice to have a robotics club. That's going to be one of the skills to prepare for in the future. How well can you collaborate with robots? Character education is becoming more interesting. How can you help kids be more resilient? How can you help them be more gritty? What do you think about human flourishing? Can you promote friendship somehow? Can you promote purpose and vision in life? That's something interesting to look at. What could you do with high school to continue working with NTC to promote college ready and like tech classes in the high school? Could you somehow get more of those classes in? There's a lot of good welding, electronics, fabrication jobs that people can't hire for. It'd be useful to be continuing to work on that. The Fab Lab's a good start. I'd be interested in trying to purchase a different reading program for the elementary grades. Can we improve our phonics skills? One of the biggest drivers after you have good phonics skills of learning to read is your background knowledge. And how can we close that? Can you need a really knowledge-specific curriculum? You want to be able to have good creative thinking skills, but you got to have something to think about. And the knowledge builds on itself. It like lumps together. I'm normally a pretty good reader, but I tried to take an electricity class and a diesel engines class, and I didn't know what any of the words meant, so trust me, it was really hard to read through those chapters. That's one of the reasons that parents are really important in education. If you can read to your kid a half hour a night or an hour a night, maybe some factual books about plants, about history, you're going to make their schooling much, much easier. That's one of the reasons why high poverty districts tend to have lower test scores. So the more everybody can find a kid and read to them, the better off we'll all be.
Thank you. All right, the sixth question will be asked by Colin, starting with Dr. McKenna.
Recently, what can only be determined as mean-spirited letters and commentaries have appeared in local media concerning the school district, with writers questioning everything from the competence of the teaching staff to the intelligence of its students. What is the effect of such language and remarks on the educators and students who make up this district?
In some ways, that's a tough question to answer, but I can answer from just a personal standpoint about how I feel about those sorts of things. In general, I think our community rises above mean-spirited commentary. I'll just speak to just how great this place is. It's a good place to be at. It is worth fighting for. It's worth running for office for volunteering for whatever people decide to do. This is a great place. And when we have comments like that, sometimes it scares people away or it makes people nervous. And I think that's the intention of it, to push down interest or to push down participation. And so I would ask people not to succumb to that sort of thing, but to step forward and say, we're all better people than that. That's a couple people here and there who you want to, or you have a way of saying things in a mean way, and it doesn't bother me. I do not like it when it affects other people and it makes people afraid, because it's just not right. And so we're all definitely better than that. And it's the nature of our era. We live in a time when people can communicate very easily with different mediums, with Facebook or online. And so, we all have to try to be good digital citizens, be good real life citizens here in the present and just do our best and move forward in a positive civic way. And I see people doing that every day, and I'm grateful for them, and I'm grateful for this community.
Thank you. Payat?
The effects of this on teachers has got to be tough. I'm not a teacher. I'm not an educator in the school district. But mean-spirited commentary would always be tough if it's directed at you. So we have to be very cautious in what we're saying. It's okay to have an opinion. It's okay to put your opinion out there, but be very cautious in what you're saying that it doesn't detriment somebody's philosophy or somebody's livelihood of what they're doing. I was building a church in New Orleans, and I carried in some doors one time, and my top contractor looked at me and said, "I don't want those trashy doors in the church." And I looked at him, and very soft-spokenly, as I'm claimed to be, and looked at him and I said, "You know, somebody took a lot of time in making these trashy doors. A lot of money was invested in these trashy doors. May not be what you like, but that person spent a lot of time. Our teachers and our educators have spent a lot of time with our students. And we need to honor our teachers, our educators in all of our buildings, because they put up with a lot of things every day. Because they have administration breathing one side, they have parents on one side, and then they also have the students on the other side. So they have all different forms of sometimes mean-spirited commentary. It's okay to be passionate about something and to show that passion, but use caution, use discretion whenever you are passionate, and not to affect the morale of our staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder?
I like Terry Fondue's articles a lot better. I think he must be taking DPI's data and running his own Excel spreadsheets to run t-tests and correlations. So when he does the numbers, pretty darn good. I haven't seen the spreadsheet, but I can read the article. He's saying that Antigo is greatly outperforming its poverty level. And what that means is that the teachers are doing a good job. There might not be some that are great, but the vast majority are very good. They work hard, and just face it, teaching is a hard job. A lot of jobs, you do pretty much the same thing every day. When you're a teacher, imagine if you're a lawyer, you prepare to go to court, you specifically work on that speech or those lectures for a long time, and then you give the trial. But as a teacher, you're teaching something different every day. So if you were you'd have to prep a lot to be able to do something different every day, and then, maybe you teach that again next year, but that's a long time to forget it before you have to re-prep it to do a good lesson. So I give teachers a lot of credit. They're very important, and I appreciate the hard work.
Thank you. Mr. Dyke?
You weren't talking about me, were you? I probably write more than anybody at this table, and maybe even more than anybody on the board. I enjoy writing. I don't attack people. I try to be informative because I know that many things that go on in the school district and other things for that matter that people are not aware of. And sometimes that's news that just doesn't get out there. And I think it's responsible for anyone reading these articles to try and determine not only who the author is, but are the facts true? If the facts are true, or they're believable, but if nothing else, call the author and ask him, where'd you get this from? I know that some people get a little rough around the edges when they write. You kind of have to look past that. But I think I'd like to see more writing on that people do. I don't like nasty writing. I never respond unless someone calls me by name. But I try to be informative and say things that people are not going to find anywhere else. And I think it's a good thing. I wish there was more. I wish our newspaper printed more. And it would make enjoyable reading because you and I both know that the news that comes out of Washington, you can't believe it anyway. And so some of this stuff is believable, and it helps you along to know where we're really at, because we do want the best for our kids. We want the best for our school district. And the more you know, the more you are able to support the candidate that you want, and you're able to get to the school board meetings and find out what's going on, voice your opinions and don't be afraid to. The board should make you feel welcome there. And if you write a letter into the board, it should be admitted to the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. The seventh question will be asked by Haley, starting with Mr. Pyatt.
On Tuesday, the Board of Education approved 5 staff retirements whose collective experience in the district totaled 99 years, and that is just one example of a continuing trend. What should the district do to attract and more importantly, retain good teachers?
It's a great question, Haley. Unfortunately, we are seeing those retirements, and 99 years of service to the district, that is a remarkable number of years. We have to, I believe the board on Tuesday also put into motion a new level of pays, salaries, and how the teachers can work through those. And what I think is remarkable about these, if you haven't looked at these, please check them out. What I think is remarkable is before a teacher, a staff person can move on to the next level for a greater increase in salary, they have to complete 90 hours of education themselves. They have to create, take themselves to another level. So if they're wanting the students to go to another level in learning and becoming lifelong learners, our teachers also are being challenged to do the same thing. If you want a raise, you do this and you'll go on to the next level. I believe our district is now set up, poison themselves in order to better compensate our teachers in order to attract better quality teachers. We have great quality teachers, but as we've heard Tuesday, we have a lot that are retiring, and probably more over the next month or two that we haven't heard from yet. So we need to attract quality teachers, and I think the current board has done a superb job in setting the points in order to attract quality educators into our community. So I thank them for that.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder?
This is a good question for now. There's general skilled employee shortages all over the place. I know there's one for schools all over the country. So how you attract and retain is very important. The new, we'll call it pay scale is a good way, like Danny was talking about. We're going to encourage you to learn more to help you get higher pay. But one of the interesting things about the board's Plan A is you're going to have a lot more teacher collaboration. It's not going to be a teacher alone on an island. You say, hey, that didn't go as well as I wanted today. What did you think about that? Or they can get in each other's classroom and give each other feedback. I think that's probably the best way for a teacher to improve. Probably better. You probably get better feedback from a fellow teacher than a principal. I don't know, you'd have to ask them. That's one of the things I'm always curious about. Maybe we could partner with a local university. Maybe we could start a club. I know that they've talked about this at the board. Try and promote teacher growth within the high school. Maybe they can take them down to a grade school and practice reading or math or something with the kids, see if people like teaching. One of the other problems is we just pay, I think, on average $5,000 a year less than the surrounding districts. So I'm sure if we passed a referendum like Plan B, that would sure make teachers feel like, hey, this community supports education more. They'd maybe feel better about coming. I'm sure the extra money wouldn't hurt either.
Thank you. Mr. Deek?
It's a little difficult to comment on the salary schedule when you have not seen one for a long time. I know how it was done before, and so that's not relevant to what we're doing today. I give you the principle of how I look at it. I don't think there should be unequal pay if two people are doing the same job. I do think that a person should be paid more if their time is more valuable to the district, and I think it's important that they're paid more if their position is worth more to the district. I also think that our starting teachers, regardless of where they are, where they come from, should be paid a livable wage. And I have a lot of criticism of how we have paid our employees in the past, and I can't comment on what we're doing on the new salary schedule. That I will find out. We only got that a week ago, so I have not had a chance to study that. but I have always had a real concern for inequity in the way people are paid. And I have no problem with the dollars. I have no problem at all. But it really bothers me when I look at the starting pay of a teacher or a janitor or anybody else, and now I know from that paycheck there's going to become deductions for Social Security and Medicare and who knows what else, and now they have to live on the rest. And it takes a lot of money to live today. So the amount of gross pay that we pay to starting employees is a little bit deceivable. And so I think we have to take a real hard look at the salary schedule. And I think it's unfortunate that the salary schedule was brought out to the Operations Committee one week and it's adopted the next. The board did not vote to adopt this intelligently. I think that's unfortunate. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. McKenna?
Just to that point, we were presented with that salary schedule proposal a number of months ago. There was discussion prior to then about work on that. And so it was a work in process. We saw it then at the committee meeting after other revisions had been made. So just as point of clarification. Teacher shortages, as JD mentioned, are going to be a significant concern for not just this district, but districts across the state and across the country in the coming years. So we really have to look at ways of pooling our resources, using them well. And right now, when we have imbalances in class sizes that are particularly significant, what ends up happening is you end up having inefficiencies. So you have teachers perhaps teaching a smaller class in one area and a bigger class in another because of just pure demographics where people live. So we have to balance that out as a district. That's an important step that we need to take. I think another important aspect is that teachers coming out now today work together with other teachers. This has been something that teachers have done a long time, but the focus of a lot of research is on how teachers work together. How do we continuously improve? And so this is an important concern. And so environments where teachers can work together, can continuously improve are very important. The last thing is I would like at some point, to see perhaps private-public partnerships that support ways that we support teachers in the community, whether that's a cooperative that focuses on resources for teachers and their students, whether it's recognizing teachers and community members that are supportive of education, through different means of recognition. I think there's a lot of different things that we can do.
Thank you. Question number 8 will be asked by Colin, starting with Mr. Schroeder.
Peace Lutheran School is now accepting children currently enrolled in the Antigo school system through the state schooling choice program. That program gives parents more options for their children, but also siphons off students and state aid from public schools. Should private schools receive taxpayer dollars to cover tuition for students through school choice?
I'm not opposed to school choice. It does make it harder as a district. You want to keep all the students you can. To me, I look at it as let's take the competition, let's be better than them, we'll make them want to come back. There's a lot of mixed studies. Some people think it really improves education, some don't, but I'm okay with parents having a choice in that regard.
Thank you.
The voucher system is one of the things that I had in mind in my opening statement, that we're going to see major changes in the educational system in years to come. This has gotten a foothold in Milwaukee and surrounding areas, and now it has moved into the parochial schools, and you're also going to see it moving into private schools. And if I wanted to be real critical about it, I could say it's only happening for one reason, and one reason only. We're not doing our job. Because if we did a proper job of educating kids, they wouldn't want to go anywhere else. And as this vouchers advance on through our educational system, we're going to have to make serious adjustments to accommodate for that. I don't like the criticism that we're taking away tax dollars. I don't believe we are, because these people that send their kids to parochial schools or private schools are paying twice. All we're doing is relieving them of paying one time. And if we do our job and we can outmatch private schools, and that's going to be the next thing. It isn't only parochial, it's going to be private schools springing up, and we're going to contend with that. And so if we can get our act together here, and we can get our system to the place where we are admired, they will not have the desire to pull away from us and be going to another school district or going to a private school or a parochial school.
Thank you. Dr. McKenna?
I am very opposed to public dollars going to a voucher system to support children going to private institutions. This is a complicated question for me because my children attend Catholic school. I will never accept a voucher for them. I mean, and obviously I shouldn't. They go to a Catholic school because I'm Catholic, and my Catholic faith matters to me, and that's the reason they go there. My wife, who's not Catholic, she pointed out that probably in some ways that hurts our district, and obviously it does. Those are children that could go here, and that's revenue that could go to this district here, and that bothers me, and that's something that we actually talked about before our kids went to Catholic school. And so I think as citizens, everyone has a right to a public education. And I think it should be the best possible. And I think if an alternative form of education matters to you, I think that's very reasonable, and you should pay for it. But that if you're going to spend dollars that are taxpayer dollars on private education, you are undermining public institutions, and you're undermining public education. And I think it's wrong. On a systems level, I can understand why people would take those vouchers. I hold nothing against anyone doing that. On a governmental level, I think it is incredibly wrong that we do that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Bayat?
Colin, the question was, should private schools receive tax dollars?
Yes.
No, I don't believe private schools should receive tax dollars for the simple fact a public school has to fall under regulations set by the government. And my question then would be, does a private school have to follow the same regulations as the public school has to follow? So I do not believe that private schools should receive tax dollars. However, if you choose to send your child to a private school and you pay for it, then by all means, that would be your choice and your decision. And our school system should support you on that decision that you made for your child. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now close the question section, and now we'll have closing remarks from, starting with Mr. Schroeder. You have 2 minutes, and go.
I was hoping to avoid going first on this one. I want to thank everybody for coming today. I appreciate you guys listening online too, if there's anybody watching. No basketball games on tonight. I would really appreciate your votes. I have an 11-month-old son. I want to do everything I can to help make our school district, be as good as it can be. What was my campaign pledge? More recess. Let's have robots. Let's work on our reading program. And please, let's work hard if we get a referendum to try to maintain our rural presence. And I think that I'm going to do that if you reelect me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bayat?
Thank you once again to the Daily Journal, Haley, Colin, Marcel. You guys have did a great job. Thanks to the administration at the high school, Tom, and our administration from Dorr Street. 2 minutes is a short amount of time. My focus and purpose of running for the school board is to keep the children the center of my focus. With the parents at the top, school board on one corner, administration on another corner. All three of those points around that triangle should have the same focus as what is the best interest for the students. Last year, my daughter developed a collapsed lung, and this community rallied around my wife and I like you would not believe. And I feel like that we can give more back to our community as they've given to us. I already serve the district in a number of areas. Ask me later and I'll tell you. But I believe that your support for me and my position on the school board, I would keep the children the center of the focus. I would represent the voting constituency of the community in that listening is very important. And it won't be my agenda that I'm going to pass through. It will be your agenda. And thank you for being here tonight. Go vote Tuesday.
Thank you. Dr. McKenna?
Every day I see patients in the clinic, and I wake up in the morning and I get to go down to the clinic and see people just from all ages, little kids, babies that are just born, to people who, are older than 100. And they live in this area. Some of them have lived here their whole lives. Some of them came here later in life or just moved here last week. And you see each of them, and it's just such a tremendous privilege and honor to serve them as a doctor. And in a similar way, it's a privilege and an honor to serve on the school board, because it's very similar. You see just, the work that teachers put in, the care that parents have for their kids. You see the efforts that the administration makes. You see all of these different parts. You see the other board members deliberating complicated and difficult issues. And you just say, I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for these people. I'm grateful for this community. And I hope you give me a chance to serve again. It's been an honor, and I will continue to try to do what's right for kids and the community to the best of my limited ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Deek?
I think I lost my mic. Did I? Okay. I intentionally did not prepare closing remarks in hoping that I could fill in on something that was not covered. But first, let me thank these young people for what they're doing. I think it's to be greatly admired. I think it's really cool. That's a word I had to learn. We didn't have it in the 70s. Back then, they were talking about how cool the milk was in the barn. But now it's something else. But thank you a lot anyway. There's something that was touched on but missed here, and that has to do we need a referendum to pay our bills? We don't really know. I don't know. The board doesn't know. The administration doesn't know. And I'm so tired of not only the administration, some board members pointing their finger at me and pointing at the community and saying these people are so dumb they need to be educated because they don't know how to vote. I think they're pointing their finger the wrong way. Because I'll tell you, there's only one word that's going to get a referendum passed in any community. It doesn't matter what it is. It'll get a referendum passed almost every time, and that word is honesty. We have not had honesty in the past. If the board is honest with the people, turn the lights on so we can see what's going on there. Be transparent. Tell us the whole story, whether we like it or not. And I think you'll be surprised what this community will do for their children if we give them that opportunity. That's all I have to say. Thank you. And I hope as we go down the road in this school system, things begin to blossom out and we get some of the hard stuff done so we can get back to education. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On behalf of the Media Productions class, we'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight, watching over on YouTube, or viewing this on Facebook. We especially want to thank the candidates for their time and willingness to serve. Now please do your part and vote on Tuesday. Have a good night.